Have you ever looked down at your tyre and noticed you've got a screw or a nail or something hanging out of it, and you take your tyre down to a local repair shop, thinking in the back of your mind, about $50 to get this thing to close to new again, only to find out that it's not repairable, and they'll lead you on with a bit of jargon as to repairable areas of the tyre, and all of a sudden you're up for about $150 or more. What I want to do today is explain why that might be the case, and also take you through the process of an emergency repair. How to get yourself back on the road if you don't have a local place really close to you. You might be traveling with your van, you might be at the back of the desert somewhere, or just in a remote town, and nothing's open. I'm going to show you how to get that emergency repair done, and where you can buy those kits from. Okay, so the four main areas you're going to have reference to you when you're talking about your tyre are the tread, the shoulder, the sidewall, and the bead. So let's get down to what these things are. The tread is the most obvious part. Everyone sort of knows about the tread. It's where you've got your grooves for grip. So when you're driving around, that's their surface area. That's touching the road. Then you've got your shoulder. So the shoulder is pretty much anywhere from the edge of the tread down to the start of the sidewall here. And the shoulder is the start of where it can flex a bit as the tyre's rolling around. The next part down is the sidewall. So the sidewall, the tyre takes most of the flex. It's apart from your shock absorbers on your car, that's the part that sort of takes most of the brunt of the imperfections of the road. Then you go down to the bead. So the bead seals the tyre. So without the bead, you're not going to be able to hold air. So it's not going to stay on the wheel or the rim. Okay, so there's steel belts that run all around, like bundles that run around inside the bead, and that gives it its strength. But in reality, any sort of a nick or imperfection in the bead area, it's not going to be able to seal air, so it won't be repairable. Back up onto the sidewall here, as I said, it's the part that does a fair bit of the work, a bit of the cushioning. So every time that tyre rolls around and reaches the bottom point on the road, it's got most of the weight on that area and it will flex in and out. So when I talk about the sidewall, I always talk about the ring pull on a Coke can. So you know how when you're sitting there bored and you just flick that ring pull back and forward a few times, eventually it just snaps. So these being steel belted radials, so there's steel belts that run through this tyre everywhere to give us the strength. When you get damage into that sidewall, so it doesn't have to be a hole in it. It could be that you've hit a massive pothole at one point and you've caused like a bit of a stress fracture, I guess you could say, in the steel belts. As it continues to roll around, it keeps flexing, moving up and down like that ring pull, and eventually they can snap. So because that's where the tyre gets its strength from, that internal tyre pressure goes through the weakest point, and if you've broken steel belts in there, the air pressure can release through that sidewall. So when we're talking about that movement, that's also why they won't want to do a repair on the shoulder, because when that tyre rotates around and around, when they take this tyre off the wheel, and they put a repair in it, that repair, if it has to go over to the sidewall or to the shoulder area, then that's the part that keeps moving when it hits the road. So as that moves, that bonding agent, that glue that they put down, will eventually come free, and then your tyre's going to leak again. And if that's on a front position in particular, or it just lets go at speed, the tyre repairer is essentially liable. So they're not going to want to do a repair on that shoulder area. And it's actually against Australian standards to do that. So that's why they'll say, no, this tyre isn't repairable. The only real safe place to do a repair is in this area here that shouldn't be moving around if you've got the correct inflation pressure in your tyre. It stays flat, it's on the surface area of the road, and it continues to roll around without any sort of real flex in it. So that is your repairable area. Pretty much anywhere inside these two grooves in, that's your repairable area. So when you do end up getting a nail or a screw in an unfortunate position like right here, that's when they're going to say to you, yeah, it looks like a simple job, but it's actually not repairable. And that's what they're talking about. So probably the only exception to what I've just said is if you do have a nail or a screw or just something that's gone in through the tread area and you think you're safe and you think your repair is going to be done, but they still say it's not repairable, that could be because when they've stripped the tyre off the wheel or the rim, they've found internal damages. So now I've seen a few different variety of this, but you could end up with a nail in here that looks like just a simple nail head, but it's really long on the inside, and as it's gone in there, it's rubbed up against the sidewall or the shoulder or something like that, and it's actually grooved it out. It's cut the inside of it. The other thing is, if you didn't notice that you had damage to the tyre quickly and you still drove on it, basically it's what they call a run flat. So as it's pushing down, so we talk about that weight of the tyre, or weight of the vehicle pushing down on the tyre. Every time it gets to that bottom point, the wheel or the rim, the parts that seal up against the bead here, they push down on the internal part of the tyre, and they run a groove. So instead of having that one fractured point in here from an impact or whatever the case is, the entire sidewall might be fractured because it's had the weight of the vehicle rolling around on it, damaging it. So basically, if you do know or you do notice that you've got some sort of damage, the best thing you can do is to pull up quick and get it changed. Don't continue to drive on it. So that's a basic rundown of what the tyre's made up of and areas that are repairable. But what happens if you're in a situation where you don't have the luxury of going to a tyre repairer to find out all that information? You've got a flat and you may not have a spare, you might have your spare on, but you end up with a tyre with a nail or something, some sort of foreign object in it. And you need to get yourself going because you can't just sit around and wait on hopes and dreams. So I'm going to talk to you about doing an emergency repair on your own tyre. So you can get these emergency repair kits from pretty much anywhere really that sells car gear. So you can get it from Supercheap Auto, Repco, you can get it from BCF, even Bunnings sell them. They're quite readily available, and they're always going to cost you sort of around that $15 to $20 mark. So it's actually quite affordable. And for what they do, it's definitely worth their weight in gold. So the kit itself, it's going to come with a couple tools, and they're going to look very similar to this. You can get them in different, some that are black, some got different handles on them, but this is pretty much what you need. What you're doing is you're pulling a screw. So we're going to be pulling our screw out. We're going to clean the hole out with this, which is just basically it's a rough edge. And then we're going to insert a plug in with this. Ideally, this is done on the vehicle because this thing's going to move around. I don't have that, well, I was going to say luxury, I don't want a hole in the tyre anyway, but I don't have that opportunity to show you on a vehicle. But what it does is, when it's on the Caravan, 4-wheel drive, whatever the case is, when it's on there, obviously it's secured heavily on that wheel and on the vehicle. It doesn't move around like I'm about to face. And I'm definitely not wearing the right colour shirt for this. But I'm going to show you how to do that, how to do it properly, what it looks like, and really how easy it is. You probably think it's quite difficult, and it's not. So I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to do my very best not to get myself between the tyre and the camera so you can see exactly what's going on, but as you can imagine, that might be a little bit difficult, but work with me. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is remove the thing. Now, I said earlier, we can't do repairs in shoulders and sidewalls, and that's still the case. But what are you going to do? If you've got something that's through that point and you're traveling and you don't have any access to another tyre shop or repair shop, you've got to do something if you don't have a spare. So we're going to do it in this area. So these are an emergency repair, okay? So they're designed basically to get you back on the road so you can get to the nearest repairer. And if you look up the Australian standards, that's exactly what they're designed to do. They are not a repair that will do the tyre for the rest of its life. So to save my own skin here, I'm telling you, don't just rely on this. If you need to use this method, use it to get yourself out of trouble and then get the tyre repaired properly, or at least get it assessed properly. Look, if you're living on a farm, you need to do something on your farm tractor. Look, I've seen these things last the life of a tyre, and that's great. But you don't want to risk that when you're traveling 60, 80, 100 k's an hour, and then you could potentially have a tyre let go on you again. You need to look after yourself, look after your family. So this is just an emergency, okay? Right, so when it's on the vehicle, it'd be great to say that the tyre still has air in it. So this will help a little bit. So if you normally might have, say, 40 PSI in this thing, and you notice it's down to 20, what you want to do is you want to pull this screw out. Now look, in this situation I'd be lucky because it's a Phillips head and I can just turn it out like that. And you'll notice that eventually it'll come out and you'll start to hear a little bit of air hissing out. If that's not the case and it's dead flat, doesn't matter. What you want to do is have this positioned so it's easiest for you. So if you've got it down the bottom, you're not going to be able to get that tool in there to clean it out and put the plug in. Roll the vehicle slightly. That's why I'm saying it's better if it has a little bit of air in it. That way you're not doing that damage we were talking about by rolling on a flat. If it is sealed off like this, maybe you can put a little bit of air just to rise it off the ground a little bit. You only need 10 PSI, 5 PSI, it doesn't need much. But just roll it to an area that's comfortable for you. And that would be pretty much anywhere from there to there, somewhere where you can access without laying on the ground and trying to work against yourself. So if you don't have a Phillips head situation like that, you might just have a nail hanging out or just a piece of steel. If you've got a pair of pliers and you can grip a hold of it and work it out, that's fine as well. So when you've got that to the point where you know it's about to come out, that's when you can start working with your emergency repair kit. So let's just say, for example, you've got everything ready to roll. You pull this out and you might have a little bit of air coming out, or it might be dead flat, either way. You're in the right position here. So what you want to do is clean the hole out, and that's what this is for. So when I talked earlier about you had steel belts and whatnot in there, if you've got bits of broken steel in there, that's not going to be ideal for you. And also the rope plug that we're about to put in there is probably a little bit thicker than the nail or something you're pulling out. So you need to make it so that it can actually fit in there. So all you basically do is put that in there, and you can see it go in, and it may not be that easy. I mean, this is a slightly larger hole. You might have to put a bit of oomph into it, but just get it cleaned out. So I'll turn it to face me so I can see where the go is here, and that's pretty much it. So you get it looking about like that. So once you know if the hole's out, the hole's cleaned out, and you can pull it out, you got a hole ready to put a plug in. Now, these are the plugs. They come in little sheets, 5 or 6 in each sheet. Now, they're called a few different things. They're a rope plug. You might even hear some people slang them. They call them dog turds. Whatever, it doesn't look like a dog turd to me, but that's what they call them. So if someone says, yeah, do you have a dog turd kit on you? That's what they're talking about, but that's kind of irrelevant. So all you do is peel your plastic out, you pull your rope plug out of there, and you just got one exposed rope plug. Now, I don't even know what that's made of, to be honest, but it's just got a sticky, pasty sort of stuff on it. It doesn't come off onto you, but it's a sticky thing. Now, ideally, what you would also have is some glue, some adhesive, and it does come with your kit most of the time. So you can actually add the glue to it, and it helps to seal against the tire and get you out of trouble. If you don't have this, and I've been in plenty of situations before where I haven't, and I've had to put one of these in, that sticky tackiness will actually help seal it up anyway. The glue can sometimes, because it's a little bit slippery than this tacky stuff, actually help the plug go in a bit easier, but if you don't have it, don't stress. So, the tool to put it in, all it is a bit of steel that comes out in a bit of a snake tongue sort of fork position. So what you do is you squeeze the end of the rope plug, or the dog turd, you squeeze the end of it to flatten it down a little bit, and you just feed it through the eye, like feeding the eye of a needle. So you just basically push that in, and you see it start to come through, and it's designed to be tight. It's meant to be a little bit difficult to get in there. But if you just keep squeezing the end of it down and keep poking it in there, eventually you can get a hold of the end of it, and pull it through. And it's meant to be tight, like I said, so that's what you want. So pull through to about halfway. That's it, it's just sticking out there. It is very much like the eye of a needle, it's just a lot bigger. Now, if you have the glue, like I said, you can apply the glue along it, and that will help it all seal. Look, I was going to do it without the glue, but I've got it here, so I might just show you anyway. So just basically take the cap off. You might have a little seal in there, you sort of bust the seal, and just apply a little bit of the glue just along each side of the head you stuck it in there with, and that's pretty much it. It's going to be runny and go everywhere, so right. So all you have to do from that point there is stick this end here in the hole, right? So that's what we're going to do now. So I'm going to work against myself here. Keep forcing it. Now, don't force it too hard, you don't want the whole thing to disappear inside there. But now I've pushed it in the hole, and I've got the glue bunching up here on the end, and I've got the two little prongs sticking out. So I'm just going to work it in a little bit more. So it's only just sticking out. Now that's about as far as I want to go. And from that point, so you can imagine I've got a bit of a loop going inside the hole. All I'm going to do is make sure this bit doesn't move, and I'm going to twist this. And all that's doing is making a ball up at the end. And then from that point there, as I twist it, make it face me so I can do it, I pull it out. That's it, it's done. So I'll show you what it looks like on the inside. It's just basically it's balled up, but because this has a little bit of a split in the end, I don't know if you can see that there, but it's got a split there that allows me to pull that out and the whole rope plug comes away. So from personal experience, look, you've done your repair, okay? It's balled up on the inside, but you do want it to set a little bit. There's no set time. I'm not going to say leave it 24 hours, 1 hour. Just look, as you're packing this stuff up and you're going to reinflate this tyre, that should be enough time. But if you've got an opportunity to sit down and have some lunch, do that as well, because I've always found that if you leave it a little bit longer, it allows that glue or this the tackiness on this to set and bond, and where it's balled up on the inside, it sort of holds itself there a bit better and it works better. So if you've got the opportunity to do it that way, do it. If you don't and you've got to move quick, don't stress about it. It should be fine. Look, this is an emergency repair. It's definitely not pretty. And it's definitely not within Australian standards to run as standard as I said earlier on. So this is just to hold you over. If it was me and I had my family in the car, I'd make sure that this tyre was on the back. I don't want a steer tyre blowing out or going flat on me. And look, every now and then just pull over and check your air pressure. Look, if you had the perfect scenario when you've got your air inside this thing, I'd spray a bit of soapy water around there, make sure there's no bubbles coming out. But that's how you do an emergency repair. So if it's going to be in the shoulder or the sidewall, look, you don't want to do it, but sometimes you got to. But that rope plug there will also work really well on the tread and get you through to the next repair shop you've got to go to. And that's it. So look, hope you found this helpful. That's really handy, especially when you're stuck. But it's also good to have a bit of knowledge as to why that tyre repair guy said, no, I'm not going to charge you 50, I'm going to charge you 150, because sometimes I feel like you can be taken for a ride. And look, if you think you are being taken for a ride, ask them to see the tyre. They'll explain it, you've got the information now, and you can just double check yourself. Okay, yeah, that damage is on the shoulder, sidewall, or bead. There's also some stuff in the Australian standards about, I think it's the hole can't be any more than 6 mil in diameter. So look, there's a few different odds and ends, but at the end of the day, you've got the information now, and worst case scenario, you can get yourself out of the crap with one of these. If you want to, you can get a pair of side cutters and trim the end off here. This isn't the important part, it's what's on the inside, where that pressure pushes back on that little ball you created. Yeah, so that should be enough to get you through to the repair shop. Thanks for watching.